It's the first week of February. College football can't matter, right? Wrong. Recruiting is the lifeblood of a program. We have all the recruiting that you need right here on Blue White Tailgate. Welcome to Blue White Tailgate, a special edition National Signing Day. We welcome our recruiting guru, Phil Gross from Blue White Illustrated on the Rivals.com network. Dr. Phil, welcome back.
It's great to be back on the Blue White Tailgate show, Andy. It's been a while since I've been here, but you can't be more fitting a time for me than National Letter of Intent Day for the class of 2015.
National Letter of Intent Day. I always like to say it might as well be a national holiday. It's the Christmas version for college football coaches and college football fans as well as players.
You always know the lifeblood of a football program is the people that they recruit into the program. And I'll tell you, I've been around this for over 30 years relative to National Letter of Intent Day, and it's dramatically changed in the last 5 to 10 years. And what has impacted the recruiting scene the most, it's been the internet and the input of social media. It has completely changed how recruiting takes place. The players now are like a 9th and 10th coach on the staff, and they recruit a lot of the players that join them on the team.
It might be our version of Christmas, but Coach James Franklin, he's not in a gift-giving mode for in-state guys.
You know, I don't think it's anything different than anything else in life. You make something a priority. You know, whether it's being a great student in school, you make it a priority, you're going to do well. You make it a priority to keep the best players in this region home, you're going to do that. And I think we can do better going forward.
Phil, obviously dominate the state mentality. A lot of that dominate the state directed out west, Pitt, West Virginia, Ohio State. How do you think they did?
Well, they did marvelous in the WPIAL and over across the entire state. 12 players ended up coming to the Penn State football program from their home state of Pennsylvania. 7 of the top 10 players are from of Pennsylvania, are in the class of 2015. We'll be Nittany Lions this fall. The top defensive lineman, Ryan Buckholtz. I think the top offensive lineman is a young man by the name of Ryan Bates from Warminster Archbishop Wood down near Philadelphia. And for the first time ever, I don't think many Penn State fans will realize this, but for the first time ever, in the same recruiting class, this is the first time Penn State was able to recruit the top 2 rated running backs in the state of Pennsylvania in Saquon Barkley and Andre Robinson.
Well, they brought in their 25 guys. We take a look at where they're going to play in the breakdown by position. 4 on the O-line. Phil, you mentioned the 2 running backs, 5 at the split end wide receiver position, obviously the quarterback, and then defensively, 3-3-5. No, guys, they're not going to be playing a 3-3-5 stack like the Rich Rodriguez defense, and then 2 athletes.
Well, I'll tell you, what really surprises me maybe the most about this Penn State class is last year Penn State recruited the 3rd best wide receiver class in the country. And people would say, you know, they had Deshaun Hamilton come out and look really, really good. And would Penn State be able to go out and recruit another outstanding wide receiver class? Because as we found out on Saturday at National Letter of Intent Day from Coach Franklin, they actually were working with 4 wide receivers on the football team going into the bowl game against Boston College. And what amazed me about this class and what they were able to do is in Juwan Johnson, Brandon Polk, and Irvin Charles, they just might have recruited one of the top 5 wide receivers at classes in the country once again.
How they got there, guys, you got to know how they're going to fit in your program.
That's what's great about being at a place like Penn State. You can pass on some guys that, you know, that you just don't feel like are a great fit. They may be a great fit somewhere else, but they may just not be for us. And that may be feedback from our players. That may be academically, a lot of different things. So, you know, that's where I think we're fortunate. I think we're still at a point where if the guy's a great fit and he's a great player, you take him no matter what your need is. But there's a fine line to that because, you know, you'll become out of whack.
Phil, out of whack, it's always a numbers game. Where they stand right now?
You know, Penn State is other people. They're going to have 78 to 82 scholarships when it all breaks down at the beginning of the 2015 season. And Penn State got to be a little bit more careful. They aren't like an SEC school, which can bring in 32 to 35 kids a year and make mistakes with their recruiting. They got to be more careful with what they do because they don't have the opportunity to do that and oversign with their class.
We take a quick look at the national rankings. USC, Alabama, Florida State, no surprise. Tennessee and Clemson, big surprise for me. We flip over to the Big Ten, Phil. Ohio State with 27. Penn State at number 2 in the conference. Coach ain't happy about that. Michigan State, Nebraska, Wisconsin at 20 apiece. Any surprises out of the Big Ten anyway? And what are some of the studs?
I'll tell you, Michigan State probably did the best right around National Letter of Intent Day. They jumped up in. Right now, some people are ranking them as the 17th best class in the country, some as the 21st best class. D'Antonio is doing an excellent job. He got a great group of defensive backs, and then they got, in Rakeem Williams, they got a great defensive end, defensive tackle out of the Chicago area that's really going to help their football program. But I'll tell you, on the national scene, the team that probably the last 3 years has surprised everyone in recruiting is Clemson. Clemson this year ended up, once they got Christian Wilkins, a kid that Penn State wanted really, really bad, they really have been able to recruit probably one of the top 10 programs in the country the last 3 years.
Phil, we take a look at some of these offensive guys, and we're going to start right up front. Paris Palmer, Sterling Jenkins, and Ryan Bass right on the offensive line.
I think Paris Palmer is probably the most important recruit in Penn State's class. He's a guy that Coach Duda at Lackawanna College compares to Bryant McKinney. And we know the job that he did winning the Outland Trophy, going on to be a first-round NFL draft choice. And with Donovan Smith graduating, that's a spot they needed to fill for a player that would be ready to play right away. And I think he can start at that position. Ryan Bates, in my opinion, is a guy that's the best qualified of the freshman offensive linemen to make the quickest impact. He can play all 3 positions on the offensive line. And Penn State's told him he's going to come in and start out at the center position on the offensive line. But they did a good job. And another guy I like, too, is the guy, Kevin Reener, the transfer they're going to get in from Stanford, who could maybe help some because he's a center on the offensive line. And that's where a great deal of things got to take place. They make all the calls at the line of scrimmage, and he's a guy that maybe will help out in that area.
Phil, real quick, Saquon Barkley, Andre Robinson. Saquon Barkley might be the Wildcat quarterback next year.
Well, he's a tremendous running back. He goes 5'11", 210 pounds, has great vision when he runs with the football. No question about that. And he has the ability to run tough inside as well as break the long ball and get outside. And Andre Robinson, he's a guy that was hurt in high school. His senior year, missed 6 football games. But as a junior, he was the AAA Player of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania.
Phil, they got their great guys everywhere they want it. They also got Tommy Stevens, who is a stud at quarterback. Penn State looking good offensively. We're going to get to breaking them down defensively. You're watching Blue White Tailgate National Letter of Intent Day Special. Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate National Signing Day Special, joined by Phil Gross from Blue White Illustrated on the Rivals.com network. And Phil, everybody knows you know yourself about recruiting, but we're going to bring in maybe somebody who's a little bit more of an expert. Penn State defensive coordinator Bob Shoop. Coach, thank you so much for being here. What was it like leading up to the moment when those letters of intent started to roll in?
It's a never-ending process. You know, and you asked about the days leading up to today. I mean, it all started a year ago when we got on the job. You know, the 2014 class had almost been completed. It was just putting the finishing touches on that, and we identified and targeted a lot of guys in the 2015 class at that point and really established tremendous relationships with them. And, you know, the irony of the whole thing is a lot of those guys committed to us actually, you know, long before today. So, you know, the last few days, it's really just about, you know, answering any questions leading up to the letter of intent, leading up to the signing day and things like that. And then, you know, then just finishing up the class with a couple different guys. And we got a couple late commitments from John Patrician from Pittsburgh, and we got one from Kevin Givens, and that was really, you know, kind of the cherry on top of things.
Listen, Bob, you did a great job at recruiting the safety position, and one of the guys that you recruited was John Patrician, and you guys had him Skyping in on National Letter of Intent Day. What did you think when you saw him in a coat and tie and driving a car in front of his dad's ownership of his car dealership?
I think the thing about the signing day that's really unique is it's the special day for that student athlete and his family, and you want them to celebrate how they want to celebrate, and we try to make it as special for them as we can. That's why we do the event the way we do. Try to get them on Skype, try to get them on FaceTime, things like that, so they can enjoy the moment, see the excitement and enthusiasm we have, whether it's an hour away, whether it's 4 hours away. And in John's case, John and I have developed a great relationship. He's a defensive back from Pittsburgh. In the irony department, I went to high school, the same high school as his mother, so we kind of developed a really funny relationship, and he's someone that I've gotten very close to. And to see him call in to do his Skype while he's driving, we certainly don't promote that. I want to make sure I say that. And then, for him to be putting on his Penn State hat, trying to show off his Penn State tie, all that way, and Coach Franklin and I just had a good laugh about that, and we asked him to pull off to the side of the road, and the kid pulls off right in front, by coincidence, of course, right in front of his dad's Chevrolet dealership. So good little plug for him right there.
Coach, we all know the staff is so competitive. I'm just wondering, is there a little bit of a casting lots, maybe rolling of the dice to see if the defense or the offensive side of the ball, who's going to get to bring home the bacon, so to speak?
It's not really like that. I mean, we all recognize we have a plan in place for a team with 85 scholarships, full number of scholarships. We have certain numbers at each position that we look at, and sometimes it's not perfect, but we ultimately try to get to those numbers and try to know what it takes to have the proper depth at each particular position. So it's never really like that. Maybe with the last scholarship or two, sometimes it comes down to it's like an NFL draft. Do you draft the best available player, or do you recruit the best available player, or do you recruit for need? So we're very happy on the defensive side of the ball with the guys that we got. We feel like we have a really good group up front. Guys that we think will have a chance to make an impact early. We feel like we've filled our needs at linebacker, and I'm really excited. I think we hit a home run with the guys we recruited in the secondary.
Bob, I feel you recruited the best group of defensive backs in the entire Big Ten for the class of 2015. We got to replace Amos Della Valle and Ryan Kaiser at the safety positions. Who are some of the guys in this class that maybe have an opportunity like Marcus Allen did last year to have maybe an impact their freshman season?
I think the plan right now is to move Jordan Lucas from corner to safety. With he and Marcus Allen, we think that'll give us as good a safety unit as there is in the Big Ten, and put our best players on the field, Trevor Williams and Grant Haley at the corner. A lot of freshmen played in the secondary last year. Troy Apke, Christian Campbell. We talked about Grant Haley. Daquan Davis, Daquan Worley, and Amani Aruye are guys that are coming in and ready to play. They redshirted. Some of those guys redshirted. Some of those guys played a role. But I really think there's going to be some competition in the secondary. We talked about Johnny Patrician. We talked about Aaron Monroe. We talked about Jarvis Miller playing the safety. Those guys are hungry. They're competitive, and they're talented. And at the corner, I really think like I said, we hit a home run at corner. Garrett Taylor and John Reed are both two of the top 10, 15 corners in high school in the class of 2015, and those guys are fiercely competitive guys who I think want to come in and make instant contributions.
You have a great quote. He said, "If you think, you stink." These are great athletes you brought in the secondary. What is it that makes you think they're going to be able to contribute early and help this football team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into the recruiting process. The film's a big part of it. You do put on the film, and you want to see playmakers. You want to see guys. It actually starts with the dimensions, the size. There's a certain range in size that you kind of look at. A guy's a certain height, a guy's a certain weight, he has certain length, he has a certain strength. Then you look for a skill set. Some of it you can see on film. Some of it that requires, seeing it in person, having him in camp, going to see a player play live. And at certain positions, like the middle linebacker or the safety positions, then you want guys who have a really high football IQ. So I do a great job. I do a lot of work in investigating guys' football IQ, spend a lot of time interviewing them, spending time watching film with guys like Jake Cooper, as I said, John Patrician, Aaron Monroe, Jarvis Miller. We've spent a lot of time watching film, and you get to know those guys and their football IQ and whether they're able to recognize formations, whether they communicate, their communication skills, things like that. And then there's the other things that you don't see on the film. How are guys motivated? How do they learn best? How do they fit into your unit? And sometimes they have all these rankings and things like that. I don't know what we ended up or where we ended up ranked, but to us, these guys are guys that we felt, brought the skill set, the mentality, and the core values that we felt could contribute to being a championship caliber defense.
Coach, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Hey, thank you for everything. It was a great recruiting day for us. We're looking forward to getting involved in spring ball here. And
you are watching Blue White Tailgate National Signing Day Special. We break down the defense next. Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate National Signing Day Special Edition, joined by Phil Gross in studio. And Phil, they brought in a great class defensively for the coaches.
Yeah, talking to Bob Shoup on National Air Intent Day, they really think they did a good job bringing an entire group on the defensive side of the ledger. They think it really is going to help out this football team, especially depth-wise.
Two of those guys that they brought in late, Kevin Givens out of Altoona and John Patrician out of Pittsburgh. They were late additions to the class, Phil. Your thoughts on them and them flipping as well?
I like John Patrician. He goes about 6'2", 195. He's a smart kid, comes from one of the best programs in the state of Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh Central Catholic, and he's a much better athlete you realize. In his high school career, he returned 7 punts for touchdowns, and maybe will help on special teams. Besides probably the strong safety position in the secondary. Kevin Givens, John Franco's a good friend of mine, the coach at Altoona High School, and Kevin Givens is one of the best players to play at that school in a long time. Played fullback, played linebacker, played defensive end. He'll end up probably the weak side defensive end. His best asset right now may be his ability to get to the quarterback with the pass rush.
Now, Phil, those guys were committed elsewhere to another school. They flipped late. Your thoughts on flipping?
It's the sign of the times. It is what it is. I don't think you're going to see much changing in that area until they get maybe an early signing period, which may happen for the class of 2016. But Penn State has done a lot of good things for the program by being able to flip kids. But personally, I don't like it, but that's just the way recruiting is today in 2015, Andy.
Hey, it's not like these kids are politicians where they flip and they're flop. Coach James Franklin on guys switching commitments.
Again, we had Patrician in camp, we had Givens in camp, and we had Bowers in our 7-on-7. And loved all those guys. And we basically kept in touch with those guys the whole process and said, if the scholarships come available, you're going to be one of the first guys that we call. And that's how it played out.
We just went over your thoughts on the flipping. You said it's a sign of the times. Coach Gaddis, maybe a sign of the times. Don't wake the sleeping giant. You see the tweet right there. They say that wasn't directed to a school in Pittsburgh. I think they're blowing some smoke.
Well, it might be the case because there was a little bit of back and forth between the Pitt coach and Coach Herb Hand earlier in the week. So Penn State's trying to brand their name and try to get the right type of thing, because Penn State, up until this year, the last 3 recruiting classes, had only signed one of the top 10 players in the state of Pennsylvania in the 3 previous recruiting classes.
One of the spots on defense they need an immediate impact is linebacker. They got a good one, Phil, in Manny Bowen.
He was a South Jersey Defensive Player of the Year, both his junior and senior season. I think he brings an element to the Penn State linebacking core that maybe isn't present right now. He's only 6'2", 206, but he has the speed of a strong safety. He's capable of playing the game from sideline to sideline. He brings great positional speed to Penn State's linebacking core.
Jay Cooper's another great linebacker, and also Ryan Buchholz along the defensive line, Phil.
I really like Ryan Buchholz. He goes 6'6". He's about 248 pounds right now. He probably is the premier defensive lineman in the class of 2015 from Pennsylvania. I think he's probably going to grow to 6'6", 265, 270, 275. He's a guy that maybe can play the strong side defensive end and at times in certain defensive alignments, maybe could drop down and play a little bit of three technique defensive tackle. And the other young man that you talked about, Jake Cooper, is a kid that the middle linebacker, 6'2", about 232 pounds, been a 4-year starter at Warminster Archbishop Woods, one of the premier AAA programs in the state of Pennsylvania.
Phil, and we've talked about it a bunch off camera and in this program, the secondary. They did a great job. They brought in 5 guys, but 2 of the guys we want to highlight here on film, John Reed out of Philadelphia and Garrett Taylor, the former Michigan commit out of Richmond. Those are 2 studs.
John Reed is, in my opinion, the #1 prospect in the state of Pennsylvania. He's one of the top 2 or 3 defensive cornerback prospects in the state. Great offensive player at wide receiver too. Garrett Taylor is ranked also as one of the top 10 cornerbacks in the country. And it's really kind of interesting. He's a big kid. He goes about 6'1", probably around 192 pounds. But he didn't play his entire senior season because he had an ACL injury in August, and he still ended up being rated one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country.
If Nick Saban's after you and you're a defensive back, you are the real deal. Another athlete I want to get to, Daquan Kelly, was a former commitment to Syracuse, flipped early on in the season to Penn State. Tremendous athlete.
He brings kind of versatility to the position. Goes about 6'2", 6'3", 210. He could play the Sam outside linebacker position or the weak side outside linebacker spot. He could fill in the star spot, that hybrid strong safety outside linebacker position when they go to the 4-2-5 defensive alignment. And some people even think that maybe when they go to their dime defense, he could even maybe fill in the role of the strong safety in the dime package in 3rd and long situations defensively.
Phil, all I want is a letter grade in your expert opinion on this recruiting class.
I think it's a B+. They really did a great job defensively, except the one place they came up short was at the defensive tackle spot. Offensively, I was surprised they were able to go and get the similar type of wide receiver class to what they did last year after being ranked so high. And it was really, really important that they went and got guys like Ryan Bates who can come in and help early as an offensive lineman. And definitely, probably the most important recruit in my mind in this class was Paris Palmer at the left tackle position on the offensive line.
B+ from Phil. The coaches are already working hard on the class of 2016. Thank you for watching the Blue White Tailgate Show special National Signing Day update.
Wow, wow.